Welcome everybody. It's wonderful to have so many of you join us on this talk on how subject matter experts can ditch the day rate through online learning. We're really proud to be hosting this event as part of the Leeds Digital Festival and hope that you get a chance to attend many of the events that are going on today as well. So just before I start, some quick housekeeping. Everyone should be on mute, but we do welcome questions throughout using the chat function in the bottom right. I'll do my best to answer these as we go along, but I've also got some Q&A time planned at the end of the meeting. And my colleague Mark, who you can see on screen, will be looking after the chat during the talk as well. I also want to advise that we are recording this event for anyone that can't make it. So we might have more people join as we go through the call, but I'm sure you're all busy people, so we'll just get started. So welcome to the talk, and by way of introduction, I'm Andy, and I'm one of the co-founders of Candle Digital. So we set up Candle Digital back in 2016, so just over 6 years ago, and our aim is to help training companies and subject experts create online learning products that matter. Now, it's really important to us that these experiences have a big impact, not only on the learners, clients, but also on the business owners too. So over the past 6 years, we've been increasingly working with what we call subject matter experts to help them create online learning products. Now, in this talk, we're going to be looking at the commercial opportunities for subject experts, highlight some success stories, consider some of the key lessons we can learn from these, and of course, look at some of the online learning platforms they're using to power their online training. We'll also be hearing from Martin, who you can see on screen. He's an experienced financial director and trainer, but I'll let him introduce himself more fully when we get to his story. So, I just wanted to show you a recent example of a project we've been working on. So Jake, who you can see on the video, is a really experienced structural engineer, and he has a lot of expertise around a specific piece of architectural software called Revit. And over the last 3 to 4 months, we've been helping him turn that expertise into an online program targeted at new structural engineers. Now, Jake is the classic subject matter expert who we'd argue is probably not making the most out of his skills and knowledge. He's largely been selling his time as a contractor on a day rate to other firms. And we wanted to break out of this by developing an online program. Now, his 12-week program is a mix of online group calls. It has social learning elements to it. It has a self-study online element, and it also includes challenges that they have to complete. And that's all been designed with a strong understanding of his audience, which again, I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. Jake's starting a pilot on Monday, and we're really excited to support him through that and see the difference it makes to those new structural engineers. But I wanted to start this. I'm sorry, I'm just going to admit a few more people. Just a few more people arriving now. So I wanted to start this talk by just introducing a term you may already be familiar with. And that is the creator economy. It has a few different descriptions. You may have come across it before, but I like to think about it as the way that independent, content creators, curators and community builders use software predominantly online to earn from their efforts. Now, it's quite a catch-all term, but I think it accurately describes people like Jake who want to use online platforms to generate new ways of earning from their expertise. Now, for me, the creator economy fills a really important gap for individuals that are looking for easy access to expertise, experience, and connections with others from anywhere in the world. Now, with the creator economy, they can get this directly from those who are skilled in the relevant field without having to go through a gatekeeper like more traditional forms of media and publishing. Now, the creator economy can really help subject experts ditch the day rate. There are some great aspects about working on a contracting basis, such as the flexibility and perhaps increased income over a full-time role, but ultimately you are still selling your time for money, which has some real downsides. Now, the way you get away from selling your time is by building assets in your business. And if you want more information on that, I can really recommend a great book by Daniel Priestley, who you may have come across, and it's called 24 Assets. So in that, he talks about the importance of creating assets, a lot of them digital, to earn further income outside of your time. It's probably beyond the scope of this talk, but I would recommend getting a copy if you want to. And we do actually have some in our office, which if you want to send me a LinkedIn, connect with LinkedIn, send me a DM, I can drop you one in the post. So there are many different ways to generate income in the creator economy, particularly if you've got expertise in a niche area. Now, some of you may have heard of Jonathan Stark. He's an online commentator who positions himself around ditching hourly billing, and he has a great newsletter, so do sign up for that if you can. A couple of weeks ago, he sent out his usual mailer, and he outlined 10 different ways you can package your expertise. Now, we split this into two buckets. On one side, you've got productized services, and on the other, you've got products. So as he explains, productized services could be things like product consultations, training workshops, strategy sessions. And this is often a case of repackaging things that you already do, but giving them a clearer value proposition and a really tight scope. And if you do want to do contracting with those clients, it's a great way to test drive the relationship, as they tend to be much more shorter and with clearer deliverables. And we've found that if the things go well, you can often lead to bigger engagements. Now, products, on the other hand, can take a bit more time and money to create, but they do have a longer lifetime value and often with minimal additional effort. So furthermore, they often act like marketing for your higher tier offerings as well. So customers who are happy with your products are more likely to climb up your product ladder to more expensive offerings. So I guess what I'm saying is it's really important to not only think about online learning as one potential offering, but think of your product suite as a whole, and where does online learning fit within that? But given we're here to discuss online learning platforms, I wanted to give you a relevant example of someone who is doing really well out of online learning in the creator economy. So I'd like to introduce you to Miss Excel. And some of you may have already heard of Miss Excel, particularly if you're on TikTok. And he used Microsoft tools. So Kat Norton, the real world name of Miss Excel. So the story goes that Kat was working in a fairly typical corporate job over in the States, but she had the unique idea of mixing dancing to pop songs on TikTok with demonstrating shortcuts and hacks for Microsoft Excel. So quite different. And she only uploaded her video, it was only back in, I think it was just over 2 years ago, so June 2020, and her social media stats are pretty amazing. So on TikTok, she has over 800,000 followers, and on Instagram, over 500,000 followers. And she's now built that audience and created a series of online courses that she's monetizing through that audience. And reports indicate, and interviews we've seen, she generates between $250,000 to $300,000 a month, and that's all with one part-time VA, which is pretty impressive. And now I would argue that Miss Excel is an outlier. You know, we're all not. It'd be lovely to have success at that heights, but I think many of us would be happy at a much lower level. But I think it's a great proof that the creator economy can work. And if you want to carve your own path as a subject expert, you can do that using the many tools that are out there. So there are some key lessons we can learn from Kat, even if we don't have necessarily the ambitions of 250 grand a month. The first one for me is Miss Excel has a fresh approach to a common problem. So if you go on YouTube and look for Excel tips, there's literally hundreds of thousands of videos. And I think what Kat's done with dancing to pop songs and mixing that with Excel is demonstrates the importance of the how over the what. So in interviews, Kat talks about polarity. She's taken a very dry subject, Excel shortcuts, and combined it with probably the antithesis of what people think of when it's Excel, which is dancing to pop songs. So she argues that that polarity creates a lot of discussion, a lot of interest, and gets a lot of eyeballs on what she's doing. She's also focused on building and helping her audience. So in her own words, the core of Miss Excel's success has been in creating free content that's really useful and helps people. She's also delivered that through the mediums of TikTok and Instagram to build her audience. And you could argue that she's surfing the waves of TikTok just at the right time, but She's also in the water paddling, to continue that analogy. So she's prepared to risk and prepared to try things to spot the big wave that could come ahead. I think for many subject experts, there's often a reticence to put stuff out there for free and put it behind a paywall straight away. There's certainly value in giving stuff away for free, building your audience, and then unleashing your product later. Another lesson we can learn is she's monetized it with a portfolio of online products. So when she launched her course, she already had a community that followed her, that trusted her, that she'd built a relationship with, and given her audience were interested in educational content, she's created educational products that work fantastically well for that same audience. So now she's got 16 courses, I think it is, and counting, and she's moved into new areas like not just Excel, but wider Microsoft products as well. So she's selling into individuals. What she's also done is she's selling into other businesses as well. So she's not only going down a B2C route, but B2B as well. Finally, and probably the most important thing that she's done, she has this term called messy action. So she talks about taking messy action, which is doing things when you're not quite sure, and trying things, not quite sure if it's the right thing to do, and getting over all those internal voices that tell you it's a daft idea and you shouldn't try it. Now she's really committed to that and giving it a go, and I think that's one of the important things, is just to create, not consume. Give things a go and just get started. So there's a few lessons that perhaps we can learn from Kat that we can apply to our own projects as subject matter experts. So at this point, I'd like to bring Martin into the conversation. So Martin is a friend and a client of ours, and he's a subject expert on finance who has turned his expertise into online programs. Now, we haven't got Martin dancing on screen yet, doing the jive. Perhaps that's an idea for the future. But I'll let Martin explain a little bit of his story and how he's now delivering his expertise online.
Thanks, Andy, and afternoon, everyone. Really nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones. So yes, I suppose the first question is, what makes me a subject matter expert? Well, my profession, if you like, I am what's called a chartered management accountant. And even though I don't look like it, I've got 25 years of experience as being a chartered management accountant. 18 of those years were in a corporate environment. So I was working with companies like IBM, Next, British Aerospace, and Lloyd's. And then I got a bit fed up with the corporate rat race, to be honest. And about 7.5, nearly 8 years ago, I decided to step away from corporate life and try and bring my expertise to a smaller business market. And the intent originally was to do that through providing outsourced or portfolio finance director services. So the idea that I could bring my knowledge and expertise to small businesses in a more cost-effective way for them. So the idea was that you would work with a business a day a week or a day a month, something like that. And so it was the classic case that, as Andy was describing, you're effectively a day rate contractor. You're just a day rate contractor with several contracts. But that has its constraints. Firstly, how do you fill up that pipeline? Secondly, the maximum you can ever deliver is constrained by your own time. And about a year into doing that for myself, I went through a business accelerator program that was called Entrepreneurial Spark. It's now called the NatWest Accelerator, and kind of prompted by a question by someone on that accelerator, it made me really hone in on the fact that actually, a bit like Andy's talking about, you know, the outcome or the description of how I would describe myself is finance director. But actually, when it boiled down to it, the majority of what I did was help people become confident and understand financial information. And it led to a conversation that said, well, have you ever thought about doing that in a more formal training environment by taking people through it as an educational experience? And so me being the accountant, being a little bit risk averse, I started taking tentative steps towards that. So initially started running training courses face-to-face, entirely face-to-face workshops, and entirely freelance on behalf of another organization at that stage. And then I found that I started to enjoy it, and I felt that I was pretty good at it. And so I started to advertise and run my own face-to-face workshops. And then a little bit later down the line, there started to be a bit of a move towards online learning. But by online learning, I mean live online through technology like we're using today, like Zoom or Teams or Adobe or WebEx or any of these things. And the more I did that, the more that I thought, it's okay and it's good. And to be perfectly frank, through the pandemic, it was a bit of a lifeline. But I also started to question whether or not there was a better way of doing things. And it was around that time that I met Andy and Mark from Candle. And without being trite, what I wanted to look at was a way that I might be able to take that expertise online, but decouple it from my time to deliver and give people a really flexible tool that's been specifically designed to be consumed online. And so we went through a process, and I know Andy's going to talk a bit more about that process, but we went through a process to uncover what that might look like and how we might shape it. And the reality is we rolled it out, and lots of the things that I thought would be the strengths and the USP and the value that would add to people actually constrained it as well. So the fact that it was self-paced and people could come and go from it as much as they want, what they didn't have was accountability. So over the last few months, we've evolved and had some real success with something that's called blended or hybrid or cohort-based learning. And it basically joins the dots. It joins the self-paced study stuff that we've already done with live online curated sessions. I ran one this morning. I ran one on Tuesday this week. I ran one on 3 last week. But the key to that is, people are learning, and they're learning and engaging in a different way, but we're also learning together. We're going on a journey. But for me, the subject matter expert, it gives me a real breadth to my offering, and it gives me masses of flexibility. It gives me masses of scalability. And perhaps critically as well for me, it also gives me a massive amount of enjoyment. I find it really fantastic when people engage with what we're doing and how we've chosen to do it, because a lot of thought and time went into it. So we recently had one delegate tell us that it was the best piece of training they'd ever been on. And they've been on quite a lot of training. So things like that are fantastic endorsements of it. But I now work a 4-day week, which helps work-life balance. It helps me spend time with my little boy. And as I say, yet I've got a scalability that would not be possible if I was just still operating solely on a day rate basis. So Andy, back to you.
Thanks, Martin. I think one thing that Martin mentioned there is we kick things off with a discovery workshop, and in that we explored why he wanted to create online learning. We unpicked what you wanted from your lifestyle, didn't we, Martin? What you was hoping to achieve from that, and just discuss and tease out any initial ideas that he had. And we believe it's very important to follow a design process like that to give you the best chance of creating an online product that's commercially successful. So often when we speak to subject experts, the questions they want answering are these two. So it's, what online learning platform should I choose? And what content do I need to include in my course? And that makes intuitive sense. You know, I understand why you want to answer those first and dive in. Creating the product feels like the natural place to start, but we found it's better if you focus on more strategic design-led questions first. So things like, you know, what am I trying to achieve? What does success look like for me? Who am I trying to help? Who's the audience? What transformation is that audience looking for? And what are their real challenges, not just my assumed challenges? When you've answered the questions like that, the more strategic questions, then you're in a better position to answer the first set. And the answers to those around platforms and content tend to fall out once you've nailed the first more strategic led questions. Now, how do you answer those questions? Well, it's not easy, it's tough, There's certainly lots of introspection. What do you want to get from this as a project? What do you want it to do for your business and your lifestyle? You need to go out there and speak to people. So you need to speak to your potential learners, clients, research the competition. So they're not easy to answer, but if you have a very kind of strong fundamental understanding of those questions, you'll be better positioned to answer the first set. Before I go into specific platforms, I just wanted to highlight a couple of these questions as they have a big influence on that. And the first one is, who am I trying to help? And that seems really obvious, but it's really important they have a very strong understanding of who you're trying to target. And in its very broadest sense, a key decision you need to make as a subject matter expert is my primary goal or my first phase to selling to organizations, what we would call B2B, or to selling directly to individuals, B2C? And Martin, you have quite a bit of experience of that, don't you?
I do, searching for the mute button. Yeah, I think this fits with the evolution of my journey, really. So as I say, when my initial intent was always to work directly with people, and my early workshops, and to a certain extent some workshops that I still run, were what I would call one-to-many B2C. So where individual delegates would book on to that training. But where we found the real value and where we perceive the blended and the hybrid stuff to really fit is actually selling into organizations. And it's taken us this journey to really truly understand that market and that market potential. So to expand on that a little bit, one of the biggest pieces of success that we've had with that blended journey is selling it into an organization that's contracted us for 3 years to run 6 cohorts a year for each of those 3 years. Well, that would have taken a phenomenal amount of effort to recruit, if you like, that many individual delegates. So the power of taking that to an organization, and also, you know, some of the skill that Andy and Mark have in terms of customization of what you have as well, can make it really feel quite personal, but also make it quite repeatable. And we've already seen from that contract various offshoots with other groups that broadly come from the same organization, and people they've heard about it and they're clamoring to get involved. So I don't think I would have had the confidence or would have felt comfortable just going direct to that market, but going through the process has really helped hone in on it and identify it. And then, of course, what you have, the beauty is you have case study that you can take and talk to other people.
I think it's just a kind of say a project like this is not only a product challenge. Obviously, you've got to create that product at some stage, but it's also a marketing and sales challenge and finding product and market fit. And that's something that people think you can just put a product on the shelf, but you have to make sure that people are looking at what's on the shelf as well. And Tim, I've just seen your question about revenue. I think that's a very important question to ask at the first stage as well. I think it goes, what do you want to get out of it? You know, a lot of subject matter experts are usually self-employed or small businesses, so it's very important to ask that as well. And in terms of your aspirations, you know, what do you want to achieve from that? What does that mean for you in your lifestyle? But the second question I'd ask as well is around what type of learning experience has the biggest impact. So as an example, Martin's blended course, as he said, includes a mix of online self-study materials and weekly group calls that he does on Zoom. So that's the best of both worlds for that audience. So they get some autonomy about when they study between weeks, but they also get in the calls chance to dive into details. They get to learn from other learners and share their stories and their findings. So it's a structure that works quite well for his audience. That weekly structure really builds confidence and skills and scaffolds that over time. We also mixed in a lot of scenario-based examples, reflective exercise, and real-world challenges to bridge that gap from studying online to actually being able to apply it in my day-to-day life. And I think that's an example of a course, a learning experience we've created that works very well for Martin's audience and what they're trying to do. They're trying to be confident about talking about financial jargon and terminology around finance in meetings and with their peers. So you have to give them the chance to do that by, for example, challenging them to go and do that during the stage. So I think when a lot of people think about online learning, they think it's all about consuming content through videos or copy, doing a multiple choice quiz as some kind of assessment, but it can be so much more. And often creating a much more rich learning experience will have a better impact on your learners. It will have a better impact on your marketing as well, because you'll have a real point of difference that you can talk about. So those are a couple of questions I picked out because they have quite a big bearing on what choice of platform that you might have. And just to provide some specifics now, I wanted to go on to some of the more practical aspects of some of the learning platforms that are out there. Now, often when we speak to our clients at the first stage, they can be really overwhelmed and know where to start. There's so many out there. And that's why we'd recommend designing your learning experience first. Because what experience are you trying to provide? And then that will whittle down and filter out many of the options that are already out there. Your learning platform should very much be an enabler for your business and yourself as a subject matter expert, not hold you back. So when you select a platform, you have two broad options. There are cloud-based platforms, or there are hosted/custom platforms. And I'll just talk a little bit about both. So cloud-based platforms, and there's a whole raft of these options, as you can see from some of the logos we've picked below. But these are platforms that are hosted and managed for you. They're already set up on the internet. You don't have to get involved in anything too technical. It's all there ready for you. And what you would do is, as a customer, you would buy a license or a subscription, like you would do for an online CRM or a project management tool, something like that. And in that piece of software, you can create your courses, you can manage your learners, and they're a great DIY option. So if you want to get your hands dirty and get up to speed really quickly, or you're on a limited budget, they're a great place to start. Now, there are many different flavors of online learning platforms. So Kajabi and Podia, two of the logos that you see in here, I think they're more orientated around the creator economy more broadly. So if you've got a range of different online products, for example, if you want to sell templates or checklists or downloads, then those platforms are really suited towards that. If you're just thinking online courses specifically, Teachable and Thinkific are probably the two obvious ones in that space. Now, Miss Excel, who we've learnt about earlier, she uses Thinkific. So all of her courses are powered through that. If you're more in the training world, you're more of a training provider, then GiraffePad, CoAssemble, and a NewSpring are oriented more towards training providers. So if you have accreditation or you need to take registration lists and this kind of stuff, they provide a lot of information around that. Now, we've found that cloud-based platforms are really popular if you're selling into a B2C market. So if you're selling directly to individuals, and the reason is they have lots of features orientated towards that. So they're very feature rich. You can get speed to market is very quick. You can also do a very low cost trial, and they are quite easy to use. I think the challenge with cloud-based platforms is you can hit a technical ceiling. So if, say, 6-12 months down the line, you really want to be able to do something in that platform that it can't do, then you're going to have to make a feature request and hope that it gets done at some stage. So that's one of the limitations. Another one is that what we would call there's a growth tax. So a lot of the licensing models that these platforms work on is either pay per user or pay per learner, or pay per volumes of learners. So as your success increases and you get perhaps hundreds, thousands of learners, then you will have to pay a lot more to that software provider. And for some people, that's not something they want to do. But the benefit of that is a very low cost base to start with. So the alternative is hosted platforms. And these are where you would download a piece of code from the website, and you would install those on either your own servers or servers that are managed for you. So you can find partners that do that for you, like we've done for Martin. And once you have that code, developers can customize for you, can build your learning content. And there's two big players in this market. There's WordPress and Moodle. Now, Moodle is a really popular and powerful platform that's used in lots of large educational institutions and also quite a lot of corporate environments as well. we found it's a really powerful tool. But it's very orientated around traditional educational model. So for subject matter experts, it may be almost too powerful in terms of what you want to do for your online training. There's a lot that you can do with Moodle, but it's not perhaps the best fit. WordPress, I'm sure many of you have come across, but at its heart, that's a content management system. And it's used to build blogs and websites, but you can add plugins to this to create a powerful learning platform. So there's 4 kind of major plugins that work well with WordPress. LearnDash is probably the most popular one, and that's something that we use a lot of. Lifter LMS is probably a direct competitor of LearnDash. Access Ally is quite interesting if you're, again, more of a creator economy kind of person and want to have a portfolio of products. Access Ally is worth looking at. Now, what I would say, one of the investment that you have to make into having a hosted platform like this is much higher, particularly if you don't have the technical capabilities to manage it yourself. But on the flip side, you have the flexibility to adapt it and tie it more tightly in with your brand experience. And obviously, as your volumes increase in learners, typically you'll pay the same fee. So there isn't necessarily the same growth tax. But I would say there's real strengths and weaknesses to both, and neither's right or wrong. It's just finding the right fit for you. And that's down to working out who your audience is and what kind of learning experience you want to offer. We found hosted platforms like WordPress and Moodle are much better if you're selling into a B2B market, if you're selling into an organization. Because if your clients have very specific requirements that you'll want to accommodate, particularly if it's a big fish, then you can do that with a hosted platform. You can take it in the direction you want to do. So one other thing to kind of consider when you're looking at learning platforms is how you can create your content. Now, in both cloud-based platforms and hosted platforms, you can build your courses into the interface itself, but there may be some limitations in how interactive that can be. So a popular tool that you can use in WordPress and Moodle is H5P, and that's entirely free. It's an open source tool, and it allows you to create interactive videos, drag and drop activities, sliders, and a whole heap of other tools to turn your training into a much more of an active experience. If you want your learning content to be portable, so for example, if you want to create modules that you could then, for example, provide to your client to put on their own learning management system, then you can do that using authoring tools such as Articulate Storyline and Articulate 360. Certainly Storyline is the main one. We don't use those very often, largely because the learning experiences that we create aren't just content oriented. But if you want to provide content and have that being able to sit in other people's platforms, then you can do that and have a look at Articulate Storyline. So a lot to take in there, but how can you ensure you pick the right platform? Well, there are a number of factors in that decision. As I say, consider the audience, their requirements, and the type of experience you want to deliver. I think it's also important to consider how unique your processes are as well. If you're, for example, a training provider with accredited bodies and you've got very specific processes, then it's likely you're going to want to have control over that and be able to do that. The other things to think about are, what kind of investment are you dipping your toe in at this stage? If you are, have a look at some of the cloud-based solutions just to see if you can develop a product and find product market fit there. Think about what products you want to offer. Is it just online learning? Is it much wider than that? And then with regards to the content, think about what kind of content you want to do and what capabilities you have to create that content. So I can't provide any specific recommendations, but hopefully this will give you some good questions to then whittle down your choices and be able to do some research with a bit more information behind you. Hopefully that's given you some insights into different kind of learning technologies. Just to finish, I just wanted to kind of share with you 5 top tips. So these are lessons that we've learned over the last 6 years from working with our clients that's helped them be a success. So the first one, I'm sure that Martin will want to chip in on this one, is it's natural to want your online learning project to be a success immediately, but as with most business projects, it rarely happens that way. I think when you launch, you'll be wanting to achieve that magic product market fit, and whatever products you create, it has a real resonance with your audience. So our suggestion would be to start small and grow into it. We hear so many people spend 12 months writing a course and building a product. They launch it and it goes out, and all they can hear is crickets. There's literally nothing. We would argue it's pick one small challenge that your audience have, create something that helps them and get it out there. We have a bit of a saying internally at Candle, which is oxygen is usage for ideas. And the sooner you can get people using your online product and get valuable feedback from it and qualification that you can actually reach that audience as well, the better you can make it and the better you can market. And I think, Martin, that's something that we've kind of really learned a lot with our journey with yourself, isn't it, Martin?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're absolutely right, Andy. I think my approach in general is always looking to evolve, the way that we do things, even within the confines, the context of the some of the stuff I've been talking about today. What I delivered in cohort 1 and cohort 2 is different with cohort 3 and cohort 4. We've gone away, we've included some things, we've made some technical tweaks. So we're constantly striving to get better. I also think, Andy, it might be worth just saying, you have to reach your own level of defining what starting small looks like. So we undertook a process where you could argue that what we took to market was a minimum viable product. But we'd been through pilots, we'd tested it, we'd got feedback, we'd engaged people, made a not insubstantial investment for a business the size of mine. But that to me was a level of commitment to what I was doing. And I think what you kind of need to wrestle with a little bit as an individual, if you're thinking of doing this, is almost, yeah, you can test it out and do some of the stuff like Teachable that Andy mentioned, but equally think about what level of commitment you want to make and the implications of that for where you might take it. But constant refining what we're doing and hopefully improving what we've got. And the vision still is and always was, we start with one swim lane of deliverables and we expand out into multiple swim lanes. And that's effectively where I see it going. So the how we deliver just enables more delivery of a broader range of things. But you only know that by testing things out and by asking people and by getting feedback.
And that brings me nicely onto my second point, which is build with your audience. So it's almost like we planned this. So there's a nice term that we like, which is build out loud. So we really recommend talking to your audience about what you're thinking of doing, even before you've put a spade in the ground. So discuss it with them, help them shape it. And Jake, who we saw right at the beginning, did an amazing job of this. So he put out to his LinkedIn network that he was thinking of creating an online program and got his audience to help him shape what it was. So the brilliant thing about that is that, you're creating something that actually people actually care about and actually is their real problems rather than their assumed problems. You're learning what's important, but you're also priming sales for the future. I think there's often a fear amongst businesses and subject matter experts that people are going to steal your idea. But in our view, ideas are pretty worthless. It's all about the execution. And if you're putting something out there and you're talking to people, then it'll attract people into that circle who want to help you with it. So talk to your audience and start as early as you can. Don't build in isolation. Thirdly, we've got Mario to help us with this one. So we'd argue that it's really important to sell the transformation, not the product. So it's very easy to talk about a product, about the features and benefits, but ultimately online courses or online learning, you're creating a transformation in people. And what are they going to think differently after they've done your course? How are they going to feel? What are they going to be able to do? And sell that rather than just what the product is. So as an example, you could go with, for example, as a course title, Finance for New Finance Managers. Something, an alternative to that might be Financially Confident in 30 days. So in the title of that product, I understand that I'm going to get financially confident. I understand the transformation that's going to happen with me. And you also get bonus points for putting a time against it. So in 30 days, it doesn't feel like it's going to drag on forever. It feels like something, I can get financially confident in 30 days. I can box this off. So think about how your value proposition for your product and how you're talking about it. And again, that's all coming down to understanding your audience and understanding what they want to achieve. Lesson 4 is be more Marmite. As we've learned from Miss Excel, she talked about polarity. You kind of have to go beyond content, and you have to do things a little bit differently. I think these days there's so much competing for our attention, and there's such a plethora of content. It's going to be very difficult to get beyond that if it's just about content. You have to think experience. The reason we've got the Purple Cow is Seth Godin. If you haven't read that book, do have a look at it. It's all about how you're going to stand out from the crowd. So be a little bit different. And we have a bit of a saying as well internally, which is you can't really have lovers unless you have haters. So I think it's okay to not be for everyone. And that's something you, Martin, that's something that you kind of rebelled against in terms of like the traditional way of doing online finance training, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, and particularly online finance training, I just felt like it was all a bit staid, all a bit boring, all a bit samey, all a bit just delivering PowerPoint that you would have delivered in a room. And I felt like there was so much more you could do with it, and there were so many different ways that you could engage people. Let's face it, finance is not the most exciting subject. And I just felt like particularly some of the big training providers out there just went with a really easy option, and actually the user experience was pretty poor. And so I felt comfortable with my methods and my mechanisms for explaining things. And even then, that doesn't work for everybody. You know, not every single piece of feedback we've had has been 5 stars, absolutely superb. And sometimes the bad reviews help you as much as the good ones, because they help you just question your own thinking. So yeah, I'm a big believer in this one. I think if you just try and tread the middle ground, you're not doing anything particularly of value either way.
Yeah. I think that's what it comes down to. I know I've hammered this point home, but let the chosen learning experience drive your choice of platform. So we advise that the learning experience sits in the middle. Technology supports that. It delivers the desired learning experience you want to, and the content that wants to do that. So design around your brand, design around your learners, and let that drive your technical decisions, not the other way around. So I hope that helps. Hear us and give you some insights into our approach and some things you can take away. Here are some suggested next steps if you are thinking of taking the plunge and going into online learning. So certainly consider your subject niche, what makes you different, and how can you create polarity in the area that you work in. Start talking to your audience, even if you're just thinking about it. Start talking to them, build your audience, figure out who they are, how you can reach them, and how you can help them, and then just get started. Build small products. Give it away, see what happens, see how it resonates. But I think there's lots of lessons hopefully we can take from that. In terms of how we can help, just to wrap up before we move on to questions, love for you to connect with us on LinkedIn. Those are our QR codes in our LinkedIn, so I'd love to connect with you. Martin, you've got some events going on in the next, you've got some finance webinars, haven't you, going on?
I have, so to follow Andy's lead on.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Martin. Oh.
Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. So to follow on from what Andy was saying, doing a few taster sessions for our finance training through October, and also I've got a follow-up to this discussion through the platform Meow, which is a partner of the Leeds Digital Festival, next Tuesday, 3 till 4 p.m. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn and you're interested in taking the chat a little bit further, I'd be happy to join you through Meow next week, or follow up just in general.
Excellent. And then if you want to follow up directly with Candle Digital, feel free to book a free discovery call on our website. If you have any questions, more than happy to help. The final thing is, I did mention 24 assets. Now I've got about 12 copies in the office. I've got a box in the office. So if anyone does want one and wants to help me free up some space in our office, just connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a DM with your address, and I'll get one in the post to you. There's only 12, so first come, first served. But if you do want one, just let us know. So I hope that gave you some valuable insights into our journey and how we work, and some choices around online learning platforms. And I guess just now I'd like to throw it open to questions. So if anyone does have any questions, we'll be sticking around for the next 15 minutes. Feel free to drop your questions into the comments. and we'll answer those. And if not, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the Leeds Digital Festival.